Order the Public Works, Finance, and Safety Committee meeting of Monday, October 7th, 2019. First item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion by Holeen and a second by Manti. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 2 is public input time. Is there anyone here that would like to speak about something? Seeing no one, I will move on to item 3, approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve.
A motion by Y and a second by Rademski. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item number 4 is council consideration to authorize the mayor to sign a professional services agreement with Pictometry International Corp., Eagleview, for the flights and imagery of the city of Watertown and Cottington County in the amount of $303,849.50.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion by Lallam. Second by Manti. And I will ask Heath to tell us about this, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. Good evening. This particular item relates to the aerial imagery that we use on our city mapping, our GIS mapping system. That imagery is typically been flown every 3 years in the city's past, and we have imagery dating several years back throughout the history on our GIS aerial image layers. The flight that is performed to perform this imagery service is due to happen here in 2020. So we've been working with Eagleview, who was formerly known as Pictometry. It's just a change in name, same company, same business. But Pictometry is who we've done business with in the past, and they're currently changing their name to Eagleview. That contract amount, the $303,849.50, I want to emphasize, is for a 6-year contract. What that breaks out into is to 6 annual payments of $50,641.59 each. And the services would begin in 2020 when they do a spring flight. All this is weather pending, of course, and they have to have the right conditions in order to fly a community to get this aerial imagery in the most optimal form that it can be in for our use. Also to note, this contract is in partnership with the county. The county's Director of Equalization pays a portion of this expense on an annual basis back to the city. The contract is inked between the city and Eagleview, but the county has an agreement with us. I should state it's not a formal written agreement. It's just an agreement we've exercised over the several years where they cost share in that performance of this. The company then flies the entire county, Cottington County limits, and it's broken out a little bit separately as far as the level of detail on this imagery. The city limits area and land immediately adjacent to the city limits are actually pixeled out separately from the rest of the county area, and we receive a little bit higher resolution and higher quality imagery than what they do in the county. For obvious reasons, in a municipal setting, you've got a lot more structures and buildings and residents and things to deal with and contend with, and that higher imagery really helps us to utilize those maps to the best way possible. So all that being said, the county's share in the past has been between $16,000 to $20,000 per year, and the Director of Equalization's budget for 2020 and last I spoke with her was not confirmed yet, but their cost share she proposed to be $36,681. So that is a good brunt of the cost of the $50,000 roughly total that we would be spending on these services. So I wanted to explain the large $303,000 number. It is a large number, but it is for a 6-year contract, and it is shared between the city and the county.
Thank you. Any questions?
Just real quick, Heath, with the imagery on this, is it that the elevation is unique that we couldn't, or I guess has the city ever looked at doing it with like drone imagery, anything like that, or is it much higher than that? And that's kind of the difference between it?
If I understand the question correctly, Councilman Hoyer, I think that there are improving technologies that are out there that are available. I know that the instrumentation used by these folks at Eagle View is a very high quality instrumentation, and to get that high level of resolution and that quality level of aerial imagery, I have not personally explored the options of drone imagery or things like that, but I know that these companies continue to expand their technology base and the services that they can provide. And as they come out with new ways to fly communities like that, I'm sure they start to becoming part of the options of the packages that they could provide. They did not explore that option right now through these communications, but whether they would in the future, is uncertain to me, I guess, at this point.
Okay.
I would like to just clarify, since I don't know if you're aware of this, but the pictometry has metric in the name. It's a tool that these aren't just photos. We can measure. Mm-hmm. We can measure in numerous directions off of them, so it isn't just pictures. And they line up and they're accurate they guarantee the accuracy to a certain degree, which is part of the reason that we go with them. So that's a pretty good deal. It's high tech, and it gets better every time, and the price doesn't really go up much. So, Councilman Lallam?
Heath, is this something that maybe we should have a memo understanding with the county on that? I mean, I know they do their budget slightly after ours, but, it's one of those things where we essentially could get left holding the total purse strings on that. I don't think it's going to happen, but it wouldn't be a bad thing just to have an MOU on that, just so that we're in agreement that there'll be some sort of cost sharing throughout that 6-year term.
Yes, I agree, Councilman Lallam. Having something in formality in writing would make sense to me as well, and I'll follow up with that with the Director of Equalization, and I'm sure once their budget is approved that she wouldn't have any problem or issue signing on to an MOU of sorts that they've already committed to in their budget. So I'll definitely follow up on that.
And is there a deadline on when they need to have the contract back?
I don't recall off the cuff if they had a hard, fast deadline they needed it by. I do know the sooner the better, so they could get it into their programming for the flights that they have scheduled for the spring workload for the company. But I could look into that as well if we need further follow-up on that.
Yeah, we're pretty late in their schedule because we want to do it after the snow is gone, but before the leaves have sprouted out. And being this far north, we're, everybody south of us will happen first. So they've probably seen a council favorable vote, but no contract back. Well, hopefully that would be enough for them. And they'd understand we're waiting for the county. So any other questions or comments from the council?
Yeah.
Councilman Lallam?
How does this compare to the last contract that we signed with them?
That's a good question. Because of the higher level of resolution that we're going to be purchasing for the city area, this does come in a little bit higher. I didn't pull the exact number here before the meeting, but I want to say we were paying in the upper 40s, 48,000. So it was only a few grand more per year for this, for a pretty significant improvement in the quality of the imagery. This is new camera technology that this company has to offer, new this year, that they came and presented to us, to city staff. And it really is a lot higher quality of an image for not much more money. So we felt that the end product was worth the extra expense.
Is this typically like a one-day process or a week-long process, or what are they looking at on that?
As far as the flight is
Yeah.
concerned?
Yep.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. I could see it, being done within a day's time, but perhaps they come back through and do a second pass for the higher resolution city area, for example, and maybe it is a couple-day process. But then, of course, that's when the work begins, is once they get the imagery taken and they work with the images they've got and put it into the right formatting and such to hand an actual deliverable product to the city. there's a little bit of a gap in time there that has to go through.
Yeah, I've seen it where you've had sunny days and then shady days, and you can tell the difference between the two.
Right. Any other comments or questions? Councilman Hoyer?
So just to verify, if we vote no today, we're able to just push this back until we get that contract from the county with it, or can we approve it with a contingency of getting that contract from the county in agreement with the copay or cost share?
I think we could do either way. It would be most expedient to have the condition, if that's a deal breaker, to have that condition in there that the county also authorizes it.
I think it's just covering our bases and making sure we do the process.
It isn't for you?
Oh, no. Excuse me. I agree that it's not a deal breaker, it's a safety, it's a
Yeah.
good business practice, so.
Sure. So we have a motion
I can
just to,
amend it.
yeah, we'll have to amend the motion.
I would amend my motion. I would amend my motion to include a MOU with the county on a cost sharing, on a dollar amount, just that we have an MOU with it.
Contingent upon county approval.
Right.
All
I
right,
would second that motion amendment.
all right. So I got to approve the amendment first, right? Parliamentarian.
Yes.
All right, all of those in favor of amending the motion as such, verify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. The motion has been amended, and now we'll vote on the amended motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 5 is council consideration to authorize the mayor to sign a professional services agreement with Johnson Controls for the HVAC preventative maintenance of City Hall and the Watertown Boys and Girls Club in the amount of $29,057 for a 3-year contract.
So move.
Motion by Albertson, second by Lallam. And Heath, will you tell us about this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is a service contract for the HVAC systems at both the City Hall building that we're in right now and also the Boys and Girls Club facility that the city owns. In the past, we've operated under separate service contracts with Johnson Controls. I've been working with Kristen, who has previously managed these contracts, and looked at talking with Johnson Controls to combine these two facilities into one contract just to help streamline things a little bit for us. It gives us one last contract to chase down. And we can manage that Boys and Girls Club service contract with the City Hall contract. I did request that they still keep it broke out as far as the cost per facility in this agreement, which they have done. And for example, the first year cost is $9,400. $3,900 of that roughly is for City Hall, and $5,400 of it is for the Boys and Girls Club. Those get paid for out of 2 different line items in the budget as they're approved each year. This is a 3-year service contract, the total amount being just over $29,000.
All right, thank you. Councilman Lallam?
Just a FYI, since I'm going to ask the same question, maybe from here on forward, we put the previous amounts in there, but how does this compare with the last contract that we had with it?
Another good question. This one, I don't have those exact numbers either, and I apologize for that, but it is right in line. I know there was a little bit, not much, but a little bit of savings from the economy of scale to bring them together into one agreement, but I want to say a few $100s off from what the old one was, a little bit in our favor.
It might be one of those just to put in with the packet, then we don't have to ask every time, or I don't have to ask every time.
Absolutely.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 6 is council consideration to authorize the mayor to sign a professional services agreement with Tyson Krupp for the preventative maintenance of the City Hall and the Watertown Boys and Girls Club elevators in the amount of $18,942.60 for a 5-year contract.
Second.
Motion by Helene and a second by Lallam. Heath, tell us about this, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This service agreement is similar to the previous one, except this is specifically for elevator service, preventive maintenance, and inspections at both City Hall and the Boys and Girls Club. Again, the same logic was applied here where we had this agreement combined, just for simplicity, economy of scale, and all those reasons, and we could manage it together under one agreement. This contract is for a 5-year contract as opposed to the previous one that was for 3 years. This is set up on monthly payments, and the elevator inspections are typically done on a monthly basis, and that monthly fee ends up being a roughly $315 per month for both facilities. It's split out to be about $175 for City Hall, $140 for the Boys and Girls Club. And I do apologize to Councilman Lallam, I do not have the previous amount, but I know this was right in line with the previous one as well, as far as the previous contract that was executed.
All right, thank you. Councilman Lallam?
Differences in cost there, is that because of height differences, I would
Probably
assume?
More the age of the elevator.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe this one's dated just that much more, that it costs us a little bit more at City Hall as opposed to the Boys and Girls Club elevator.
Okay.
Does that sound right, I guess? I'm not sure on the age of the other one.
I
But
didn't know how many
Yeah.
floors they do versus what we do.
I know that
Floors, but the Boys and Girls Club did get a brand-new elevator.
Oh,
and that the age heavily weighs into the cost for the inspection and the services provided.
Right. Actually, it might be the same number of floors. We have that lobby, which is not really a floor, but a separate level, so 4 levels. And they have 3, I think, so. Other questions or comments? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 7 is council consideration to authorize the mayor to sign change order number 1 for a timeline extension with Donek, Inc. for the Park and Rec Improvements Project number 1909. Have a motion by Helene? Second. A second by Rademski. And Heath, will you tell us about this, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is a contract extension, time extension. It's a Park and Recs project that the Engineering Division of Public Works is helping to manage. Donek was awarded this bid this May 28th, I believe it was. And throughout this summer, the spring and summer, through this construction season, these 2 particular locations that include City Park and Jackson Park have been inundated with water. And the particular area of parking and driveway or access that we wanted to reconstruct have been specifically inundated with water. Either that or you wouldn't have to dig very deep to find water, being immediately adjacent to the lake as they are. So what we're proposing is to extend the time on this contract with the contractor and just simply fold everything over into next year, the same completion date in 2020. And hopefully, with any luck, we'll have some better conditions into some point into 2020 and be able to actually perform the subgrade, the base course, and the paving work that needs to be done at these 2 locations.
And Donek is okay with this?
Yes, they have, Colin is in the audience here as well, the Assistant City Engineer. But I believe they have fully executed the
Change order?
change order at this point. Colin, do you know if we've received that back?
I don't think I've seen it yet today. I guess the biggest question I got last week from them was price differences from year to year. And so they were going to write a letter to us stating that if, depending on oil prices, if it goes up or down, we would adjust.
And along those lines, too, we are protected through the language of our contract that allows for negotiations of price if there's a price adjustment or due based on quantity, time delays such as this one. But it has to be a substantial impact on the price according to the contract language in order to renegotiate that price. So that's something that Cal and I would work closely with the contractor on, and with Matt through our contract administration, to make sure that, we are following the terms of the contract if they do sign on for the extension as we've got it outlined here.
And excuse me, normally we won't bring this forward to you without a signed change order from them. This one just got delayed after it was already on the agenda.
All right. Any other questions, or Councilman Hoyer?
I guess the only question I would have, Heath, is this something that maybe we want to look a little deeper into? If this is inundated with water this year, is there a high chance that in years to come we'll face more water issues, and do we maybe need to look at berming it up a little bit more, or raising whatever bit of road we do just a bit to maybe assist it from not happening again down the line?
Yeah, no, that's a good consideration, Councilman Hoyer. Off the cuff, I would say that the immediate corrections that this job would be performing are probably okay to proceed with as a standalone project, but we could definitely entertain, if there are other means and methods to help mitigate these issues. Given the proximity to the lake, I don't know, so there's a lot to do as far as drainage improvements or berming and things like that, because of the groundwater is just so high there. The issue here is more related to the high level of groundwater than it is surface water entering these areas. So to mitigate the groundwater would become obviously a huge undertaking of proportions that wouldn't make sense in relation to these improvements. So I guess long story short, I'm personally okay with proceeding with the project as a standalone function, but also keeping in mind the points that you make, looking for any improvements that we may be able to do to help minimize these effects in the future.
There's no guarantees what you're getting at next year will be any better, but we're just going to hope for the best. At this point, if we have the same conditions next year that we have now, we'll probably have to renegotiate.
Right. I mean, I think it's just kind of looking ahead here in the future, since we just saw some interstate go into the water this year, kind of trying to proof ourselves a little bit as best we can in some of these projects as we go, especially when it's city or public land, just because everyone gets use out of it, and it kind of holds us up in a lot of ways. But if you feel like this won't impact that, then, of course we'll trust you. You're the engineer, so.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 8 is council consideration of change order number 1, final, with Asphalt Surface Technologies Corporation for the chip seal project number 1915 for a decrease of $4,971.60. Motion by Holene and a second by Y. Heath?
Thank you, Mayor. This change order is really simply a balance of quantities after the project was complete. As you recall, this year we did do a little bit different chip seal than we've done in the past, thanks to the street superintendent and some of the investigation that he did prior to this construction season on how to improve that process. And what we included this year was a chip seal, flush seal combination, where the chip seal was applied as it commonly would be, with oil and rock, and then flushed the surface again with the appropriate surface oil type that's utilized in these kind of applications. What that did is gives us a good bond at the surface of that rock. We have a little bit less chip loss, presumably, in this process. But aesthetically as well, it gives the neighborhoods that this was done in a lot better looking appearance. It's got the black appearance of a new asphalt road, really. And I think it helps to foster the acceptance of these kinds of maintenance applications to our streets throughout the community. So I think it was a great shift to make. We're going to continue to monitor its performance over the next few years. We plan to do the same type of chip seal again next year. And long story short, this one came in at a little bit of cost savings, just shy of $5,000 due to the balance of quantities.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments? Councilman Wallem?
Just one recommendation, if we're gonna do this on, like, say 19th like it is, we might wanna, cause it is a lot darker, maybe put some paint down as to where people are supposed to drive. It does make it a little bit more difficult at some of the intersections, stuff like that. So, I mean, in the residential areas, you don't have as much Now you're gonna tell me you can't paint it?
Oh, they're gonna be painting it. Just haven't been done yet.
Yeah, so the state's gonna come paint that. They had to wait a certain period of time with that extra fog seal over the top. Because the paint won't stay. So they are, Rob can tell you
They're
about.
here right now.
Are they, literally?
Right now, yeah.
Well,
And they had to wait 10
you
days
tell-
to
you
paint it.
ask, you tell
So-
me.
Man, I'm gonna start asking for more stuff.
Yeah, no, they were here right after lunch. They had a little breakdown they were working on repairing, and our crews, we had people standing by to help them with coning because the paint is drying a little slower today, so.
Yeah, it's a little more difficult to.
They need 10 days too before they paint. I mean, temporary paint could go down, but the contractor did put reflective, can't think of the name of those right now. Markers, yes.
Little pop-up things.
Yeah.
Councilman Hoyer?
I was just curious. So the one that's south of Mount Hope, the road there, the one that goes by the community gardens, beautiful. Looks really great. Was that what Kemp was supposed to be? Or was it a different process?
No, different,
Okay, that's what I just wanted to confirm real quick, because the
Right.
one down there looks,
right. Kemp
it's
was the
great.
last of the chip seals without a fog seal over the top.
okay,
And chip seals are not generally liked by property owners.
right.
Fog seal is more expensive, but it does give you a longer lasting surface, and people like it so much more.
It just seemed like it stuck better, but I guess I was asking more just
Yeah.
for a learning
Right.
point for all of us,
Yep,
so.
thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, it looks like a brand-new road when you get, on the other hand, it looks like you went back to a gravel road with our chip seal without a fog seal. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Right.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item number 9 is authorization to purchase one new John Deere 544L front-end wheel loader with attachments from RDO Inc. through a Sourcewell bid in the amount of $198,731.
So moved.
Motion by Lallam and a second by
Holene.
Holene. And Heath, want to introduce this one?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is similar to an action we took recently to purchase a truck and plow configuration from Sourcewell. This purchase, having been budgeted for this year to the tune of $195,000 in the budget, is meant to purchase a loader for the street division of Public Works. And Rob Bain, the street superintendent, is here this evening. He did some homework on this as well and researched the specifications from some of the Sourcewell bidders, the vendors that put into the Sourcewell program, and received some options from a few of them. And what it boiled down to was this John Deere 544L model meeting all the needs, the specifications that we needed it to meet, and can be purchased for slightly over the budget amount that Rob has proposed to find that extra $3,000 elsewhere in his budget to accommodate the $198,000 purchase. But like as I mentioned, Rob's here to help answer any detailed questions on the equipment purchase.
All right, Councilman Lallam?
Rob, it looks like there's just a few more attachments and some items that you added to it to make it probably a little bit better for your guys' operations, I would assume.
Right. We did, this year we did add to, as far as our attachments go, pallet forks for that. And we also added a V-plow to that. Those were two of the things along with the bucket that we added. And of course, there's a valve system. They're called Suchi valves, and they actually help with attaching and unattaching stuff, so there's not pressure in the line. So that was about an $800 increase over what we would normally ask for.
It should make that easier to use year-round. Is that the plan? Is that
Right,
the-
and we do have times when we get material in to the street department, comes in on trucks, and sometimes we don't have our big skid steer there to unload it. If we can have pallet forks for a rig like that, they'll be able to take anything off size-wise, plus we'll have chance of having a rig back at the shop to unload trucks, so.
And it looks like we just acquired $4,900 from chip seals.
Yeah, and we have, where we're looking at for our de-icing sand, I think we had, 23,000, 24,000 left in our line for de-icing sand. If you guys have been by the street department, we have a lot of sand there from the HESCO baskets, which we might need next spring, but so we do have sand there, and matter of fact, we're starting to mix that sand with our salt at this time, being we're supposed to have a foot of snow by the end of the week. So, that's where I'm asking for funds to cover that out of our de-icing sand line.
Other questions or comments? It's two different funds, by the way, but anyway. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries.
How do they mix that sand?
Mr. Bainan, would you come back to the microphone? Councilman Lallam has a question for you.
How do you mix your sand with salt? I mean, you got some guys out there with a shovel and a bucket, or what?
Actually, right now we use our loader, and normally we would have a side dump or a tandem axle truck dump sand out for us, but with everything piled up, we're going to have to calculate how many scoops it takes of sand compared to salt to get about 15% mix. So before, let's see, what was it, one scoop of our L90 to 26 ton out of a side dump. So
you're really using a big scoop.
yeah, it's a big
Shovel
scoop.
with a
Yeah,
big-
big scoop shovel.
With a big
Then we
bucket.
spread it out and drag it and just rotate it in there until we feel we have it mixed pretty good. But
So you went to an older guy.
it's an old
Get in the
method,
sandbox.
but yeah,
Okay.
it's
I was just checking how
probably
you mix those.
one of our most experienced guys is doing the mixing as we speak.
Could you get like an industrial size using our conversion blender?
In the future, we might ask for conveyors to mix that. So, but that's down the road.
Just more curiosity how you mix sand that's on the ground with
Yeah,
salt
it's-
you got on the ground.
And we do the same thing with millings when we're mixing gravel in with millings so they don't stick. It's the same method. It's putting it's like 2 scoops of gravel to one side dump so it doesn't stick. It's kind of what the county has found to be the best. It takes so much gravel to one load of millings so it doesn't bind together so much when it's in the pile. If you leave just a millings pile, it'll turn rock hard if you don't mix gravel with it. So,
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is number 10, council consideration of amendment number 1 to the professional services agreement for the airport apron reconstruction phase 1 and perimeter fencing modifications project with Helms and Associates in the amount of $421,297.16. A motion by Holene and a second by Manti. And Heath, I'd like you to introduce this.
Thank you, Mayor. So as you recall, we've applied for funding for reconstructing the current terminal apron at our current airport terminal. And that funding was applied for earlier this year, and we have recently been sent the grant agreement, the funding agreement for the completion of this work. This is the Airport Improvement Program eligible funding that we received. That agreement, along with the notice of award for the contract for the construction of this apron, were both executed recently, as was approved back when applying for the funds. So upon the fast turnaround of the FAA requirements, the execution of that funding agreement, we've kind of got to backpedal here just a little bit to catch up with our consultants and the fees associated with their work that they do for us. And one of those consultants is Helms and Associates. And this is a change order in the amount of $421,297.16 for their services that relate to some additional design that they were required to do as far as the electrical portions of the terminal apron and its reconstruction. It's also related to their bidding and negotiation services, which have already been performed because we had to pre-bid this construction contract in order to submit the funding application. And it's also for their subsequent construction administration and resident engineering throughout the construction phase of the new apron in front of the existing terminal. Also to note that because this is AIP eligible funding, the split is 90% federal, 5% state, and 5% city. So the city's share for this change order only amounts to $21,064.86. Of course, the consultant is here this evening, along with Todd Syrie, the airport manager, and we'd be happy to help answer any detailed questions.
Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to clarify, the 421 is what the total contract amount goes to, so the amendment is actually for 342,001.08. There was $79,296.07 of design that was previously contracted. So the amendment is actually for the 421 less the 79 that was already contracted. And the reason is, with their funding, a lot of times they want you to do the design first. So we did the design first, and then until you bid it, we can't do the rest. So it's kind of two separate years. 1 year we designed, this year we bid and are going to start to construct. The other thing with that is because it's over $100,000, you're required to do an independent fee evaluation, which means another engineering firm did a review of this project and gave what they felt the fees should be. And so for the amendment portion, there was, I believe, Altag Engineering did a independent fee evaluation, and they came in at $371,818 compared to our $342,001. So everything looked good that way, and the state was happy. So.
Would you mind explaining, Bob, in the amendment itself, there are two numbers listed with a slash between them. So, for instance, design and preparation of plans and specs, cost / total $17,365 versus $96,000.
Yes, the 17,000 is the new portion needed for the electrical engineering, because we had to add some lights around a green space area that ended up in the apron, and so that gets added to the 79,000 that I told you previously. So that's how it comes to a total of 96.
Okay, so the dollar amounts in the amendment add up to 421, but some of that was already authorized?
Correct. 79,296.07 was previously, and if you look, have you got the page 3 there on the
Yep.
amendment? If you look at that, there's an asterisk on the first 4 items. And if you look down, it says these subsections were previously contracted under 2018 FAA grant.
Okay, got it. Makes
So,
sense?
Bob, if I may, is the formal change order amount indicated on these paperwork, or do you have to calculate it based on the numbers that are on here?
You'd have to calculate it based on the numbers that are on
And
here.
that exact number again is what?
342,001.08.
0.08?
Yep.
Okay, so that is what the motion should be, to approve a change order in that amount.
Amendment, yep.
Okay, Councilman Albertson?
Bob, I suppose, how many other aprons are out there that will need to be done, or is this a wrap-up, or where are we out there?
This is the last one that remains from the original aprons that have been out there forever. So it's the one out in front of the terminal now. And there will, if you're fortunate enough to secure funding and get a new terminal, then there will be a new apron for that new terminal. But this is basically the last piece of apron out there that hasn't been done in the 20-plus years that we've been working here.
The other thing I was going to touch on is we talk about the green space area. We were kind of directed by the FAA to design that apron to handle your current air carrier service. But once you do construct a new terminal and you have a new terminal apron, that area can then be transformed and utilized for general aviation, new FBOs, expansion for your existing FBO, lake area, whoever. But I mean, it's then going to be able to be transferred to be used for general aviation in the future.
Councilman Lallam?
So it won't be one of those, excuse me, where it would be, you design it now, and if you build in a year, you have it shelved. So that's not what we're looking to use it. We'll use it for long-term.
Right.
Okay.
It'll probably be your most attractive piece of property you have out there for corporations, LATI, whoever comes next, so.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? All right, we'll need to amend the motion.
What's the amount?
The exact amount, correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, would be $342,001.08.
Correct.
Okay, just to be clear, I mean, the 421 appears in the exhibit and that's the only dollar amount. We don't see the 340, that's going to be confusing. We need to write it in such a way that the additional cost is 342 when that gets written out for the minutes. Creativity, Kristen. All right.
If you
So
want
we
me to,
have- oh,
Mayor,
okay.
if you want me to redo a cover page, I can certainly redo a cover page and include that number.
These are the maximum amounts, right? So that are in so it's fine. We're not going to be tracking extra amounts.
Right.
We're going to be tracking total. So
Okay.
I think it's fine.
Okay.
It's,
In the future, we will make it clear.
all right. Thank you. So we have a motion to amend the motion. And it was Beth Mantee. Do you second that amendment?
I do second.
Okay.
I second the amendment.
All right. Is there any discussion on that? All in favor of amending the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. The motion has been amended. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item number 11 is discussion on the City of Watertown sump pump discharge ordinance. And Heath, I'll let you lead this.
Thank you, Mayor. In speaking with wastewater and landfill superintendent Mike Berger, I wanted to bring an item forward with him this evening, just as a public information reminder of the sump pump ordinances that we have in place currently in the city Watertown books. There's Chapter 17 of the City Code refers to the wastewater systems and the ordinances pertaining to them. And there are two parts of that code that explicitly call out how we deal with and how we manage sump pump runoff and the discharges from sump pumps. In a nutshell, I wanted to give just a little bit of background here for educational purposes that I think is important for the public to help understand the mindset here is we do operate two separate sewer systems. One is the sanitary sewer system where a wastewater is collected and sent to the wastewater treatment facility. And that includes, the toilets, the showers, the dishwashers, your kitchen sink, all the plumbing of that nature that's in your house or your business is collected through the wastewater system, the sanitary sewer system, and is treated at the wastewater treatment plant before that effluent then subsequently gets discharged to the Big Sioux River. It has to meet specific treatment criteria and is tested daily on multiple different factors and is permitted through the state. The second sewer system that we operate is the city's storm sewer system. And that's where all the rainwater essentially is one way to look at it. The rain falls out of the sky, hits the street, runs down the curb and gutter, goes into an inlet. That inlet is taking that water to the storm sewer system. And that's meant to collect surface water runoff and in some cases some groundwater discharges as well. Now when we enter the discussion of sump pump discharges, what we essentially have there is clean groundwater that is getting discharged typically to the surface. It's required to get discharged to the surface through the summer months in this community, as in most. So you'll have your sump pump discharges going out into people's backyards, out to the curb, and in some cases ends up into the storm sewer system, which is okay. But now, as we approach the winter months, the city ordinances do allow for a variance to be issued to let those sump discharges go to the sanitary sewer system. Now, I want to say this tongue-in-cheek that, you know, if we don't need to do that, we absolutely don't want to encourage it, because those flows do then take up capacity of the wastewater system. And it also sends clean water, groundwater, to our wastewater treatment plant. And we effectively end up paying money at the plant to treat clean water. And so the more we can minimize the sump pump flows to the sanitary sewer system, and this goes for any community, the better off that wastewater system is as far as its functionality, the collection system being able to carry the appropriate amount of wastewater, the plant being able to treat appropriately and handle the flows that are commonly received from wastewater alone. So with all that being said, just a little bit of background there. Our ordinance does allow, beginning on a date that we administratively determined as October 15th, for residents to apply for a variance to discharge their sumps to the sanitary sewer system. That is an allowance that has to be applied for, and the wastewater department issues a permit for that. So it's required that the residents contact them to receive that variance. They come and do a simple inspection on how your sumps are connected to the city's sanitary system, and they give you a little tag, I believe, even that you hang on your sump setup in your basement, and it's formally documented. And what that does is it helps the wastewater department monitor and manage those additional flows. They know where this groundwater is coming from, what parts of town it could be potentially be coming from, what parts of the wastewater collection system could be taxed more heavily based on the sump variances that were issued. It helps them anticipate increased flows at the plant and manage those accordingly. So it's really not as much of a big brother effect as it is simply good management of the wastewater system. And we just want to encourage people to use that required process and to go through those checks and balances. And Superintendent Mike Berger's here as well, and I know he's got some more detailed information if we have time and we wish to discuss here this evening. But that's in a nutshell what we wanted to share with everybody this evening.
All right, thank you. So it is illegal to discharge your sump pump water into your sanitary sewer service without a variance, and a
Correct.
variance needs to be applied for, a
Correct.
permit.
Yes. As Heath mentioned, it takes up sewer capacity to let this water in, so we really want the residents to call us and request a variance and have a chance to talk to them and explain to them, you don't want to put this in the sewer. It's prohibited from going to the sanitary sewer because it takes capacity and it takes money and energy to pump that clean water just like it does dirty water. So, and looking at how it's affecting our system this year, I've got some visual aids to share. We're seeing some excessive flows this year, very big flows. With that, I'd like to pull up one visual aid here and talk a little bit about the effluent flow at the wastewater treatment facility. And here is this flat red line. That is the design average flow for the facility of 4.0 million gallons per day. That's the average daily flow over the course of a year. And in blue here, this line are the actual daily effluent flows out of the wastewater facility going into the Big Sioux River. That's in millions of gallons per day. And then down below, I've shown the rainfall in inches, charted in inches per day. And you can see that in January and February and March, we're running 2.5 million gallons a day. There's not much going on, but as the frost comes out of the ground and we get into flood season, you can see that when a big significant rain event occurs, we're seeing a pretty immediate response at the wastewater treatment facility. And to date this year, we have found 111 homes discharging sump pump water illegally into the sanitary sewer and are sending them all letters letting them know that they must cease to do that. And then So we're working on that right now. And just to give you an idea, some people think, I got a little sump pump. It doesn't really mean that much. It's keeping my grass dry, and I got to mow. We're talking to a lot of folks. People really feel that it's sort of something that it's okay to do. But if you look at sump pumps, here I'm going to look at two little sump pumps. If you had a 3rd horsepower sump pump, that can pump up to 1,800 gallons an hour at 10 foot ahead. So if it ran for 15 minutes and 1 hour over a 24-hour or 1 day period, that one pump can do 10,800 gallons in 1 day. So if you have 100 of those pumps coming into your system, that's 1 million gallons a day. And that's really wiping us out right now. Similarly, if you had a 1/2 horsepower pump, that pump could do up to 3,480 gallons per hour, operating under 10 foot of head. If that ran for 15 minutes every hour for a 24-hour period, that pump could do over 20,000, close to 21,000 gallons, or 100 of those pumps can do 2 million gallons. So that's what we're seeing right now. Our flows have come up significantly. One more little chart. Here, the red line is our design average of 4.0 million gallons per day. Back in 2016, our average flow for the whole year, daily flow averaged 2.6. 2017 and 18, that daily flow averaged 3.1 million gallons per day. This year, we're sitting at 4.7. With the high groundwater and all the pumps that we're fighting right now. So just kind of wanted to get that out there, and as Heath mentioned, if it's not necessary to go into sanitary sewer, you shouldn't do it just for convenience. It's costing us a higher utility rate at our wastewater facility and our lift stations, and it's consuming sewer capacity, which may cause backups into homes.
That's, would you repeat those numbers, what the average was and what it was this year?
There's 3 different averages in the design of a facility. I can touch on that too. Maybe this will clarify that. The design average for our wastewater treatment facility is 4.0 million gallons per day. So far this year, we're averaging 4.7. Now that's the daily average over the course of a year. And shown here is the design average is the bottom red line. That 4.7 here is the blue line. And there's 2 more flows we look at in the wastewater treatment facility. One of them here would be 6.2 million gallons a day. That's the maximum amount per day we should pump over a 1 month period. And we did not.
Bill Hauer.
Thank you, Councilman Vilhauer.
We did not break that, but you see, for 2 or 3 weeks, we got close to hitting that here in April. And then the other flow we look at here is the design maximum week. That's 6.8, and you can see we did exceed that for 1 week this year in the peak of that flood. And then there's a few isolated peaks where you got a big event and you saw the effect. But we're seeing a large amounts of clear water in the sewer. We're out inspecting homes, we're out televising sewers, and there's a lot of clean water that should be dirty water in our sewers because of all the dilution.
Right.
And so we need to get the people out and keep them out as long as necessary.
The numbers I was hearing that I wanted repeated were the average flows before this year and the average flow this year. And I'll tell you, people, that's not new people in Watertown. That's clean water.
Yes.
And so 4.7 has been our average daily flow this year. What was it before?
2016 was 2.6.
2.6 to 4.7.
Yep. And then 2017 and 18 were real close. They were pretty much the same number. They were 3.1. So just from 2018, from last year to this year, we got to jump of 1.6 million gallons a day, which is probably about 100 sump pumps that shouldn't be in there, which will be found.
And the amount of water that comes from a sump pump is so much greater than domestic waste that a home generates. It's shocking at what that does to our system. There's a very real cost that comes to building too low and then having to, so this is just one more reason not to build below the water table. Councilman Hoyer?
So I guess here's kind of my question with it, because you did say that you sent out notices. One, how are we enforcing this and tracking where people are abusing it? And then 2, do we need to look at making it more strict with illegal pumping?
Good question, and we're working on that. We've sent out, we'll call it our first response letter saying, you're doing this, it's prohibited, stop, or there could be consequences, being a fine. And then we've got a second stronger letter going out. And then after that, I think we get to another letter where we're probably going to have to impose some penalties if we find people that they've been told a couple times and they come back in the sewer. We've seen that in a case or so. We're going to have to put some teeth into it, I'd say.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, if we're giving out even 3 letters, that seems like a lot more strikes than we need to be giving out. The law's the law.
Yeah.
If you get a couple warnings with speeding, and then after that, I mean,
Well, we could certainly cut out one letter, and after on the second letter, impose some sort of a penalty. And that's something we're discussing right now and looking at, and we're drafting. But I think we're headed there.
Right. Okay. Have you done a news release
Ma-
about letting people know that it is prohibited unless they have a variance?
Yeah, well,
This is the time they should be getting a variance.
yes, we're right now we're doing that. The 15th is the opening period, so we're going to be out there now reminding people that this is illegal.
Okay.
In the media. It'll be on the website.
Councilman Vilhauer?
Mike or Mayor, this is Glenn Vilhauer. I'm coming into this conversation late, I know, but Mike, you said that looking at some sort of penalty. I thought we already had something in our ordinances that would address a penalty for a situation like this.
Yeah, and that penalty, Glenn, is up to $1,000 per day. And because that's to include maybe an industry that's violating as well. So at this point, we're looking at trying to determine what's the appropriate level in a residential situation to start to impose a penalty.
Okay. Well, I definitely would be in favor of going forward, getting something a little more definite than that, because we got to put some teeth into this.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. Any other questions or comments from the council?
Madam Mayor, just to follow up on your point of public notice or public service announcement, that is truly why Mike and I wanted to get together with everybody here tonight at the Public Works Committee level, just as kind of an introduction to what this regulation is, as this October 15th date is fast approaching. And then Mike and I will work closely on getting a formal announcement out subsequent to this discussion as well. Reminding people that if they do desire to go to the sanitary sewer, it's not allowed until October 15th and only through a variance permit procedure that they have to follow.
All right. Thank you. Councilman Lallam?
Heath, on this one, is this something that we can utilize where they're, instead of pumping into the sanitary sewer, I mean, when we're doing new subdivisions, can we have them have the direct into the storm sewer? I mean, as a subdivision comes in and we have pipes that run into that? I mean, I don't know, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, we began discussions on that, Councilman Lallam. It's a very good point and a good mindset to have on how do we otherwise curb this issue. One of the solutions that other communities use are sump drain collection systems. Now, depending on how they're designed, would also depend on how well they'd function during the winter months.
Right.
You know, obviously if they're deep enough, you wouldn't have a freezing issue.
They won't function in this climate. Our storm sewers are shallow and almost uniformly freeze. So there are very few storm sewers that don't freeze. And the sump pump discharge lines discharge to the storm sewer or to an open channel, which generally freezes. So that's why people get the variances. Probably the single most important thing we can do is build above the groundwater table so that we aren't sucking groundwater out from around our foundations. And I mean, some of that is going to happen, but design it to be in extreme conditions like this year, not for that to be the norm.
Yeah, I'd like to mention 2 things that do help. If you look around your home and you see an area where the dirt has settled so water can pool against your house, that's going to get into your sump. But when you get out there, if you see these areas, if you add a little black dirt here and there and slope the landscaping away from the home, you can really reduce your sump pump, the water that gets into your sump. And similarly, so many people believe, this is South Dakota, it freezes, I got to pump. my house can't go to the sanitary sewer. And this year, on several occasions, it's pumped every 2 minutes. If you lay that hose on a slope so it drains empty at the end of a cycle, or if your ground is flat, you put a cinder block up, put a board and tie that hose on that board so it's sloped downward so it drains out, you can avoid a lot of these discharges, reduce the discharges.
Where does that end up, though?
In your yard, same place the hose goes.
Yeah.
Or you can actually, though, you can add more hoses and bring it around to your curb and gutter if it's not freezing yet.
Yeah.
Other one on Mike would be to, if you have gutters, make sure that you have downspouts and extensions on them.
Yes.
So
Good
it's
point.
the same thing we have when we have water issues in basements.
Right.
Madam Mayor, if I may, one of Mike's points there about it going to the street, I think that's why this ordinance is written the way it is. There is language in here about not wanting icing issues in the curb lines and on the street. And I would venture to bet that Street Superintendent Bannon would agree that there are probably a few locations throughout town where that could become an issue if we had winter discharges of continual sump flow to the street. And we just, that's why I think we have the inspection and permitting and variance process, just so those things could be checked off and vetted and ensured that, whether it's a necessity or not, to prevent the street icing and things of that nature that we do not want.
Right. Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you both for bringing this up. It's very timely. Appreciate it. All right, moving on. Is there any old business? Councilman Hoyer?
Just very quick, Heath, I think all the striping is done in the downtown. It looks great. So, thank you, Street Department.
All right. Any other old business? Councilman Albertson?
I just sent a note to Kristen and to you, Mayor, about we were talking about purchase of a truck that had a boom on it that would collect the branches and then cut them off at the same time. That was an expensive venture, but I haven't heard any more about it. I was only reminded yesterday, I was on the golf course, the Cattail Crossings, and there are lots of trees. I don't know if it's 50, but there are some dangerous trees. And when we talk about safety, I would really like to see I just don't know. I forgot to mention it earlier, so I didn't broadside you here with this, but I don't know where that is at this point.
I don't think there's been a formal request. What? No, I don't either. We should come through the park department. So, yeah, we could use it for sure. We'll follow up with that. Is there any other old business? How about new business? Some new business? Someone had new business? No? Okay. We do have a reason to go into executive session pursuant to SDCL 1-25-2 to discuss some contract negotiations, economic development, and I think that's it. Does that cover it?
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman
Mayor,
Villar?
will I be able to?
Yes,
Sarah?
you'll be able to stay on.
Will I be able to? Will I be able to stay on the line, or do I need to call back in on someone's private line?
We'll get you hooked up, Councilman Vilhauer, but not
Okay.
broadcast, obviously. We will not be making any decisions when we come out of executive session. Motion.
Motion to go into executive session. Second.
Have a motion by Lallam and a second by White to go into executive session. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. We are in executive session, so everyone but the council has to leave. We'll reconvene